Welcome back. This is State Representative Valencia Stovall of House District 74, and you're listening to us on new WCEG Radio on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Remember, you can call in at 678-619-1402. Well, we're now going on to the second half of our show. One of the other topics that come up a lot, and I actually had a question that was asked to me while we were on break. Representative, why did you decide to give out information and do a show to educate the community? Well, I think I just answered my own question. And the reason is because I believe that when the community is knowledgeable about what the issues are and they're able to have a voice, then that's when we will actually be able to see change. There are a lot of things that happen under the Gold Dome, which we call the state capitol, during legislative session. So we're in session 40 days out of a year. So there's 40 days out of 365 days in a year. And so during that particular time, we are deciding on bills. We are voting on budgets that will affect Georgians for all the remainder of the year. And so it's very important that we hear from you, our constituents, our business people, about these issues and what your feelings are. Now, we might not all agree. No one ever agrees 100%, but at least we would know what your viewpoint is. And there might be something I never did consider as an issue or something I need to pay attention to that you may bring to mind. You can actually join my email list while we're in session. GoStovall.com. I'm on Facebook, all the social media platforms at Valencia Stovall. So one of the issues that came up during the summer was Little Ones Early Learning Center. So Little Ones Early Learning Center is a very unique early learning center located in Forest Park. That actually is a family-owned business that's been in operation for over 20 years. And one of the things that they have that's unique is their jasmine stand. They have actually a farm stand, or actually not a farm stand, but a garden, community garden. And in that community garden, they have their students that are attending the school that actually man the garden, and they also receive food is cooked from that particular garden. So these students are actually receiving fresh fruits and vegetables for their lunch and also for their snacks. And along with that, Little Ones also have different classes for their parents to teach them how to prepare fresh fruits and vegetables that the kids are already getting in school. So for about a year, Little Ones actually operated a farm stand. And so they had a table. They actually took those produce that was from their garden, and they also had produce that were from local farmers, brown farmers. And so they opened it up and sold these items to the community. You could walk up to the farm stand. I visited several times to get some fresh fruits and vegetables. And also, if you have an EBT card, you also get double what your amount would have been on your card. So it's a great community service. And for those who don't know, south of I-20 is a food desert. And you may ask, what is a food desert? A food desert is where there's not available, affordable, fresh fruits and vegetables for those people living in that particular community. Yeah, we do have the State Farmers Market, but for those who don't know, the State Farmers Market primary purpose is for the wholesalers to be able to sell food out to different their clients, like restaurants, and different other places. And so they do have sheds that are there that offer fruits and vegetables, but that's not where you can walk. It's not within walking distance. So this particular farm stand was in walking distance. So there was an issue that the city of Forest Park brought up that the farm stand was in violation of the code. And so the parents and students and employees of Little Ones went to the city council meeting. This was last year, and requested that they give them an ordinance or alternative to the ordinance or amendment to it to allow them to operate. Well, of course, little politics came in the way, for those who understand what that means. And so they denied and didn't want to allow the farm stand to operate. Fast forward, we're now in 2020. The zoning review board held a meeting, and they did vote for little ones to be able to operate their stand. And so tonight, actually at 7 o'clock, what's that, about 19 minutes, the mayor and city council will convene for their meeting to actually vote on the approval based on what the zoning review board recommendations are. So we will hope that they would do what we call the right thing. And because when you look at healthy eating for our kids, we have so many children that are obese, and obese children end up becoming having health problems as they become older. So if we're able to start at an early age, like what Little Ones is doing, and helping to craft what does healthy eating looks like, then we're going to be better off as a future generation. And also, just to let you all know, this past, well, it was a summer, it's kind of fall. My office collaborated with Forest Park High School, the Forest Park PTSA, and also Dr. LaWanda Falami was there, and National Wildlife Federation. And the students created an environment assessment survey project where they actually went out and surveyed the community about environmental liabilities and environmental assets. And they actually did a great job with doing their presentation. And they're actually scheduled to do their presentation the first Monday in March at the City of Forest Park's regular council meeting. And so you talk about environmental issues, it still comes all back to what we were talking about earlier about Little Ones. And so what we want to be able to do is spread this same concept that Little Ones has throughout Clayton County, and not just Clayton County, but also throughout Georgia and even nationally. And this whole thing called Farm to Table is a huge initiative that's being promoted and pushed nationwide. And so instead of Clayton County being at the back end, we want to be in the forefront with being the trailblazers on a lot of issues that we can do now by just simply changing those policies. So I want to congratulate Little Ones for the work that they are doing, and with the students that are there, and the staff and the parents that are doing an outstanding job. The next big topic when you talk about Clayton County is the jet fuel tax. So for those who might not have heard, I don't know where you might have been hiding, up on a rock or somewhere, if you have not heard the issue about the jet fuel tax and how it affects Clayton County. Well, we've been dealing with this about 3 or more years. And right now there's a piece of legislation, House Bill 504, that's now in the Ways and Means Subcommittee, and that's on the House side. This bill will allow Clayton County to be able to tax the property that's located at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, which is located in Atlanta. And it's a long story about how is it that Clayton County, the county, does not own the airport. So that'll be another day for another topic, another time. But short version is that we have to now find a replacement of $20 million that we will be losing as a county and city and school system total, because we no longer can collect the jet fuel tax from the for the airlines. And that is because of a Federal Aviation Administration ruling. So it wasn't anything that happened locally, but that was something on the federal level. And we also are working with some of our federal counterparts to be able to pass legislation so that it can be able to allow Clayton County to be able to collect the jet fuel tax sales. But until then, we have to come up with a remedy. And we appreciate Governor Deal in 2018, and the legislature as well, for passing a bill to allow us to receive a grant. And when I say us, it's Clayton County, the city, and the counties receive the grant to kind of hold us over to our next SPLOS, which is in 2021. And the school system received a grant from Delta Foundation. We're very appreciative of them stepping up. But that money ended December 31st of 2019. So as of right now, there's no sales tax money that's being collected from jet fuel tax sales that's going towards the school system. So we're working diligently, and I do want to say this, as a delegation and as a county entities, we have come together. We don't come together on many things, but we have come together, and we've been working together for about 3 years trying to find a solution for our county. And let me tell you how detrimental it is for the loss of this jet fuel tax money. That means taxes are going to go up. Yes, you heard me say nobody likes to hear increased taxes. But if we don't have another way of making in city services and even issues that could end up happening with our school system. As you know, we just recently passed a SPLOST. I think it was about 280 million. If I can stand corrected, but I know it's a lot of money. And so part of that SPLOST money that's collected, the eSPLOST, was coming from and would come from the jet fuel tax sales money. So we're working diligently at the Capitol, and we're going to soon be calling on you all to be able to help us to promote and advocate for our county. So there might be a phone call, it might be you visiting the Capitol, or it could be a combination. But we have to let the Georgia State Capitol and those there, our colleagues, know that Clayton County cannot survive without that replacement of that $20 million plus. And so we've tried to work with City of Atlanta. We actually met with Mayor Bottoms in January of last year, and we met again with her staff, but we have not come up with a conclusion and something that's compromisable that's going to help our county. We're not trying to take anything from Atlanta, but at the same time, we're neighboring counties and cities, and we have to be able to work together. If one county is suffering, then that means the other surrounding counties are going to suffer as well. And this is a very unique situation for Clayton County. We are one out of 159 counties that's hit the most about the loss of the jet fuel tax situation. So I did want to make sure that I brought that up with dealing with Clayton County. Next, the African American women's health was the next topic that I said I was going to speak on. So during the fall, before session ended, I was appointed to the House Study Committee on maternal mortality. And maternal mortality is the rate of how many women are dying because of pregnancy-related issues. And so, but the alarming part about it is that it's a lot of women that are dying. And 60% of the women could not die, and it is preventable that we didn't have to lose 60% of the people that are dying, women that are dying. And there are several factors. Majority of the issues or the reasons are heart related. And I just want to kind of run a few numbers or statistics by you. And for those of you all who love the research, you can go on our house.ga.gov website, click on Study Committee, and then click on maternal mortality, and then click on Final Report. And you'll be able to see all the recommendations that came out of that report. Now, I must say, I sat on the committee, but I did not agree with all the recommendations in its totality. I think that there should have been a recommendation added to that list that specifically says that more research needs to be done as to why so many African American women are dying because of pregnancy-related issues. And just so you know how serious it is, African American women are 3 to 4 times likely to die than any other race, whether they're white, Hispanic, Asian, any other race. Black women are dying 3 to 4 times faster than any other race. To me, that's an epidemic. You know, when the state of Georgia, we had this issue about meth, and we also had the issue about people taking the pain pills and overdosing on opioids. We said, hey, that's an epidemic. That's an issue. We need to resolve it. And we started putting into place programs, treatment centers, putting money aside to be able to make sure that we are accommodating that epidemic and make sure we're cutting it and decreasing it. So why is it when it comes down to African American women dying 3 to 4 times higher that we do not make that a priority in this state? And so we'll continue to fight. I appreciate my colleagues in the House. Actually, I did a morning order, and the morning order is a time for us as legislators to bring up issues that we would like for everybody to know about. And I appreciate those legislators. There were women and men, black and white, who came and stood with me at the well. And the well is where we actually make our announcements, stating that we are very upset to know that African American women are not going to be targeted in those recommendations. There were a lot of general recommendations that, yes, It will affect African American women, but why is it not specifically for African American women? And one of the reasons why we have House study committees is so that when you have a recommendation, usually what happens next, a legislator will look at those recommendations and then create legislation based on it. And the whole issue is by us not stating that in the recommendation list. That is not anything in history of Georgia that states that Georgia is concerned about African American women's health when it comes down to maternal mortality. So I'm working now, my office and others, we're working to introduce legislation to create a commission on African Americans' women's health. And the reason I didn't narrow it down to just maternal mortality is because there are a lot of issues going on with African American women's health. We have a higher rate when it comes to cancer, have a higher rate when it comes to heart disease. And along with that, we have so many other issues that we're dealing with when challenges with child care for our children, transportation, affordability, and patient care. And some of you all who are African American women, they brush us off with, oh, and I don't know what the mentality of that, why that is, but those are the reasons why we have to have a focus on African American women's health to see how do we prevent it. A lot of these, if 60% of the deaths are preventable, doesn't matter whether it's white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, or any other race, then we know that African American women do not have to die at higher rates, and not just for maternal mortality, but these other health issues that we have. So I definitely be looking and counting on you all for that particular support. Keep on the watch for it as we move forward with that particular legislation. A couple other things I want to tell you that under the age of 25, when it comes to maternal mortality, and this is across the board, there's 17.5% of women that are dying. In the age range of 25 to 29, there are 22%. The age range of 30 to 34, 26.7%. And 35 years or older, if a woman becomes pregnant, with no matter what race, there's a 52.2% chance of them dying because of pregnancy-related issues. So that's huge. So as you get older and you're having kids, and there are different factors. We had experts that came to speak to the committee about these different variant factors as to the reason why. Out of our 159 counties, 75 of our counties do not have a problem with maternal mortality due to mental health. So there are a lot of mental health issues that goes along, and those who have had kids, postpartum is very serious. And one of the recommendations I will commend from the committee was to be able to extend out Medicaid coverage to at least 1 year after a woman gives birth, because those are the crucial years. Right now, it's cut at 6 weeks, which those of you all know that's very short time. You really don't start feeling those different emotions until after those 6 weeks. And also, I was actually on a panel, and I want to give appreciation and thanks to the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys and the Georgia Association of Women Lawyers. So about 2 weeks ago, they had a panel talking about maternal mortality. And myself and about 6 other Black women legislators, we all served on the panel to talk about these issues that I just brought up to you. And I want to thank Representative Abel Mabel Thomas for leading the charge, Representative Park Cannon, Representative Renita Shannon, and so many others, and on the Senate, Senator Tanya Anderson. So all of us, came together, and we're still working together to try to come up with a solution for our community. And remember, you're listening to the new WCEG radio network, and you can listen to us live streaming on WCEGtalkradio.com, or call in at 678-619-1402. I'm State Representative Valencia Stovall, bringing you updates what's going on under the Gold Dome. So next, the census. I know everybody does not like to talk about the census. What does the government want with my business? Why are they asking all of these questions? Well, guess what? The government already knows your business. If you file taxes, if you receive a check, if you work anywhere in Georgia, in the United States, guess what? They can find you if they want you. So the census has nothing to do with the government getting in your business. The census and the importance of the census is that, first of all, it's constitutionally mandated by the U.S. Constitution that every 10 years there shall be a population count of the people that live in the United States. It doesn't matter whether you're a citizen or a non-citizen. If your body is present in the United States, we want you counted. That tells about funding. Everybody want to know why we don't have enough money for school lunches. Why we don't have enough money for hospitals? Why we don't have enough money to fix these raggedy roads? Well, all of those things, the census tells us what the population is going to be. And it does it for 10 years. So you're only doing the census every 10 years. So just think, if you're a parent and say you're pregnant, a mother who's pregnant, and you decide that, well, I'm not going to count my child because the child is not here. But guess what? When we do the census, it's for how many years? 10 years. So if you don't count that baby that's not born in the census, then accommodate that child in school. Because how? The government didn't know that your child existed because you didn't put them on the paper. And so it's very important that you participate in the census. And let me give you some other important facts about the census. Like I said before, the hospitals and redistricting. So we always talk about we don't have fair representation when it comes to elections. Well, with the census, once the government knows what the population count is, then those particular districts on the state level, like in my particular case, and also on the federal level on the House of Representatives, they are districted according to population, according to how many people live in a certain radius. And that's how our districts are done. And they're redone every 10 years immediately after the census, because you have more people that might be moving into it. So you want fair representation. But if you don't sign that information or put the information in for the census, then you can't get fair representation. And I tell you another important factor when it comes down to the census, a lot of people don't realize this. How many of you all like to have family reunions? Every year, a lot of families have family reunions. But guess what? One of the important things with the census and the archives is that you're able to retrieve information about your family or ancestors from 75 years, after 75 years, and then put the information into the census. So you don't have to worry about your identity being stolen or anything. The census does not release that information until 75 years after that census has been taken. So when you're now looking up your ancestors, you might know a little information, but guess what? You might not know where they live. You might not have known how many children your grandmother or great-grandmother had. You might not have known what their occupation was at that time. And actually, like I said, and where they actually located, what county and city were they actually in. And that's the information you're able to get from the census data. And you can actually get it free of charge from the Georgia Archives and the National Archives, which are located, guess what, in Clayton County, in Morrow on Jonesboro Road. And so you're able to go and get all that information. The other important part is that the census is hiring right now. So you have some people that you know that want a part-time or need employment. The census.gov is where you would go to apply for jobs. And you might say, well, what kind of jobs does the census have? They're called enumerators or census counters or census takers. So for those of you all, which I know that's not the people that's listening in on the radio, because I know you are going to fill out your census and you're going to send it in. But for those who decide that they are not going to send it in, you will be receiving a knock on the door. And they're going to say, hey, my name is such and such, and I'm here from the census to take your census. No need of closing the door in their face, because you would have had plenty of time to get your census information in. And actually, they're doing a lot of the census forms online. You'll be given a code. But for those of you who are saying, I'm not computer literate, I'm afraid of the computer, they will also be sending paper copies into certain communities that they know might have challenges. And this is a good opportunity if you're a part of a faith-based community or your organization, nonprofit, and you want to know, how can I help my community? The census is a great way of you going out and educating the members in your church or your faith-based organization. Maybe you might do a day and say, we're going to do Census Day. Everybody that comes to church, right after church, we're going to make sure everybody's completing their census form, because it's that important for our community. And also, libraries will be open to allow you to come in and complete your census. I think this is a good opportunity for schools to be open, because guess what? Schools are in our neighborhood, and guess what? Schools benefit from that federal funding that comes from the census. So be creative. Each one of the cities and counties have a census, it's a double word, census count committee. So find out in your community or your city who's on that committee and what they plan on doing. So you're going to have to complete your census between, if you don't complete it before April the 1st, then between May 13th and July the 31st, you will receive a knock on your door if you have not completed that census information. So I can't encourage you enough to make sure you all are completing that census information, and it's very, very important for our community. You're listening to State Representative Valencia Stovall on WCEG Network, on WCEG Talk Radio, and we're really excited. If you want to call in at 678-619-1402, you can also go to my website and join my email list at gostovall.com. I have a few announcements I would like to make sure I make as we begin to wind down this particular radio show. On Saturday, excuse me, if you're not doing anything and you like to be around teenagers, I know many people might not, but if you want to be around teenagers, my office is collaborating with Change for Hope, Ride to the Olympics, and also Empire Board Realtors to be able to host, and also Forest Park High School to 3 p.m. That's this Saturday. It's a free event. Come out. There'll be several workshops that we'll be doing. The theme this year is I Am Well. We want to make sure that our teens are well, not only mentally and physically, but also financially. So we will have workshops talking about how to become an entrepreneur, what are different career choices, and then we'll also talk about teens overcoming pressure. A lot of our teens are going through a lot of things when it comes to bullying and self-esteem, and we need to be able to show them how to be able to talk those things out and who to talk to when they're actually having a problem. We heard some alarming statistics. I was on a panel for Voices for Children on the first day of session, and one of the youngest children that had committed suicide, it was the age of 9. And that's very, very serious. You wonder, how is it that a 9-year-old will think about ending his or her life, that there's no more hope? Well, these are serious issues. So if you don't have a teenager, you might not be aware that these things are going on. So come out on Saturday, February the 22nd, from 10 to 3 p.m. We'll be having workshops for our teens. And guess what, parents? We have some stuff we need to talk to you about as well. And so if you're there, don't just drop your child off and keep on riding. We want you to drop them off and come inside to join us for the Teen Summit, the 2020 Teen Summit. And down at the Capitol, there are several events that will be upcoming. February the 28th will be Yoruba Day at the State Capitol. And Yoruba is one of the oldest ethnic African tribes in Nigeria. And they with a large number of people that actually live here in the United States. And so we will be doing a special resolution acknowledging, because it is Black History Month, and talking about our ancestors. And so you're welcome to come down to the Capitol. We'll be there starting at 8:30. We'll start pictures at 9. Next, on February the 29th, the City of Riverdale, in collaboration with several others, including my office, will be sponsoring the cultural celebration. And we will, it's an African celebration that we'll be doing at this Riverdale Town Center over on Church Street in Riverdale. So definitely come out. It's from 12 to 6. And immediately after that event, there'll be a special play called Martin versus Malcolm, where they would actually have someone talking about, this, our current year now, what would Malcolm and Martin, what would that conversation be like? Now, there is a $10 charge for that, but for the event that's going to be from 12 to 6, there's no charge. February the 29th, my office will be hosting the Black Male Educators Day at the Capitol. It's very important. We have a lot of teacher turnovers across the state, but we don't have enough black males in our schools to be able to be mentors and to be able for our children to be able to see success when it comes down to educators dealing with who are actually black males. So we will be at the Capitol starting at 8:30. Pictures will start at 9. That's February 29th. I'm sorry, February the 28th. Yoruba Day is February the 27th, y'all. So February the 27th is a Thursday. We have so much going on at the Capitol. February the 28th, which is the normal end of the month, but we are leap year this year. That would be the Black Male Educators Day. And then the 29th, that Saturday, will be the cultural celebration at the city of Riverdale. March the 9th will be Senior Adult Day at the state capitol. So if you're a senior citizen or senior adult that's 55 plus, and you would like to come down and join us at the state capitol, we'll be recognizing our very own Clayton County Seniors Center because they have won an accreditation for being one of the top senior centers operating the senior services, not center, but senior services. So we'll, if you live near one of the senior centers, definitely sign up now. There'll be transportation provided, and also there'll be free lunch provided as well. Excuse me, that's March the 9th. March the 10th, our Women's Caucus, every year we recognize women who are doing an outstanding job in our community and in our particular district. And the name of the award is the Nikki Randall Yellow Rose Award. And this year's recipient, I'm so happy to say, is a Forest Park resident that's been there a long time. And her name is Mrs. Maddie Hartsfield. And so we'll be recognizing and honoring Mrs. Hartsfield from my district, District 74, as an outstanding woman leader in the state of Georgia. And that's March the 10th. March the 19th and March the 21st are one of the probably the most best day, I would say, event that my office hosts. I host a lot of them, so I like all of them. But this was very dear to my heart because it's a single parent day event. So for those who didn't know, House Resolution 279 was signed into law in May of 2018 that designates March the 21st of every year as Single Parents Day in the state of Georgia. Single Parents Day in the state of Georgia, March the 21st. And so we've been taking nominations for single parents who are doing an outstanding job. Now, parents, if your children are grown, I'm sorry, this does not apply to you. You can still come, but we won't be recognizing you. And guess what? I fall in that category too. So maybe next year we might have a special category for parents who are single parents, but their children are grown. So, but this particular event and award are for parents whose kids are 18 and younger that live with you. They cannot not live with you. They need to live with you, or you have joint custody. And so on March 19th, we're going to have single parents at the state capitol. We want you to come on down. It's a free event. We're going to acknowledge you for being a single parent. We're going to acknowledge those awardees that we're doing. And this is in collaboration with the National Leadership Group. I want to thank Beverly Brewster, who's the president, Ms. Lenora Daniels, and so many and other members of that particular board. We've been working together on this project our third year, and we're really excited. And then on March the 21st, we're going to culminate it with workshops and a luncheon, awards luncheon. So that's March the 21st. It's going to be at Atlanta Metropolitan College. And for you to register and more information, go to nationallg.org. And that's nationallg.org to be able to register and get more information. So if you're a single parent or you know of a single parent, come down to the Capitol and celebrate with us on the 19th and also on the 21st. Now, the workshops on the 21st are at no charge, but the awards luncheon is $25 per person. And we are looking for sponsors. So some of you all just have some extra money around and you want to be able to sponsor. We have different levels starting from $30 all the way up to $2,000 for sponsorship. And so you can get that information on the website as well. So thank you all for that. And also, I talked about that. Okay, I was making sure. We've been doing pretty good on time, making sure that I'm capturing everything that I need to talk about. Now, other thing, last part is every year, as a legislator, we are allowed to, as part of our job, besides passing the budget, we introduce legislation that we think that might make a change in the state of Georgia. And so last year I introduced House Bill 11 that I later on reintroduced as House Bill 263. And it's the open enrollment bill. It's very controversial. Yes, it is. And it will allow students to enroll in any public school outside of their zone area as long as the person who lives in that zone gives them permission to use their address. Now, something else came up about this particular bill. I've gotten a lot of people talking about it and very interested in it. Because sometimes when you live in certain communities, your school level of academics is not where you believe it should be. Not saying the school is low performing, but it's not where you think the performance should be. And because of that, because of our state law, you are zoned to be in a certain area according to your zip code. Now, some of our zip codes don't have where we have an high economics of returns on money that comes in. So we don't have as many resources. I'm trying to fix this up politically correct, y'all. But we don't have as many resources as we should have in our communities. So in that case, parents, if they want to drive their children or child to another school district that they believe is a better school district, why shouldn't they be able to do that? Well, this bill, if passed, will allow you to do that. I actually had one of my colleagues approach me and said, Representative, why don't you just take the whole address part out? Just say you can go to any school throughout in any public schools in the state of Georgia that you want to without any address requirement. And that was a pretty good idea, so I might reintroduce the bill and put that in there. So we're still moving along. House Bill 476. As many of you all know, you hear a lot about the entertainment industry. The film industry is great here in the state of Georgia. And with that, we have that are child entertainers. And they actually work and get paid for being entertainers. And so one of the issues is that a lot of those parents do not want to homeschool their kids, or they don't want them to have virtual school online. And because of that, they want them to stay in a traditional public school setting. And what's happening now is that whenever they're going on a production set, the students are being marked absent, unexcused absent from their local school. Majority of the time, these parents have already worked it out with their child's teacher for the lesson plans. And another thing that I found out when I started researching this bill was that there's a studio teacher that's located on the production set whenever the children are there. There's a certain amount of time that's set aside that's required for any production set to allow for the students to be able to do their classwork. So it's not that the students are on the set playing around and not doing their work. They are. And so what this bill would do, if passed, will now say to any school district that you cannot mark the students absent. They have to be marked present. And they have to show documentation, of course, that the students were actually on the production set. House Bill 691 is a consumer protection bill from deceptive insurers that are endorsing home repair businesses on their website. So, you know, you're a homeowner, you pay your homeowner insurance, and you believe in that insurance company that you're working with is going to be good faith when it comes down to a claim that you might have. When I had a constituent that did not happen to her. She had water damage that was caused by a leak in her refrigerator, and it ended up damaging her kitchen and then went down to her basement. So she contacted the insurance company to file a claim. The insurance company sent out a water restoration company. I'm not going to name either one. but sent out the water restoration company to dry out the house. Well, the water restoration company did not dry the house out completely. And the only way that she knew that it had set up mold was when she brought in the person who was going to repair her house, start removing the baseboards, and found there were mold signs of mold. So she contacted the insurance company back, and then, the long story short, they're still in court now trying to deal with the damages that happened to her house that were not properly done from the beginning. So this particular bill, if passed, will now say to insurance companies, if you place any company on your preferred list on your website, they have to be registered with the Secretary of State up under that name. Because what happened, this particular home restoration, water restoration company had another name listed up on the Secretary of State. So unless you did a lot of research as a consumer, you would not have found out who that company is. And what's important, the reason why that's important or how they're listed is because you as a consumer can sue that particular company. But if you don't have the correct name that's listed up on the Secretary of State, then your suit would be void. You would not be able to follow through with the suit. So those are ways that sometimes, we have some deceptive companies, not all of them, but some that are. And so we want to make sure they're not deceiving the consumers when the consumers are paying money for insurance and believing that the insurance they're paying will cover those damages. So that's House Bill 691. I talked about earlier House Bill 504, which I'm a signer on. The first three bills I mentioned, I'm actually the first signer, so I'm the sponsor of the bill. But House Bill 504, I'm one of the co-sponsors with Representative Burno, who's our chair. Health is a bill that I plan to introduce, and mandatory video cameras. And hopefully Lala and Ron are watching, and Jessica. So in 2016, that was my first time getting a bill passed and signed into law. It was House Bill 614, the Landon-Johnson Act. And that particular bill allowed for school districts to place video cameras in the classrooms of special needs students that are self-contained. That means all of them are in the classroom together, for those who might not understand that process. And so because it was not mandatory at that time, we have not had any schools since 2016 to say, hey, we want to make sure our students are protected along with our educators. So we're going to place these cameras in the classroom. Zero. Now, there are some school districts that have cameras in the classroom, so this bill did not refer to them. But for those school districts that, for whatever reason, do not see it as the most important in there, and we're talking about students that are nonverbal, kids that cannot communicate, so they can't tell you what happened, and they might get the timeline mixed up as to when something happened. And then on the other hand side, we really appreciate our educators, because it takes a special type of educator to deal with special needs students. And so this bill was not going to be a bill to punish the educators. It actually was going to protect them, because sometimes things happen before the students get in the classroom. And so the video cameras in the classroom allows for that third eye to be able to see what actually took place. So the bill that we'll be introducing this session is going to make it mandatory for video cameras to be placed in the classrooms of self-contained special needs students. And it's a certain category that they have to be categorized in. And those are students with speech impediment that don't allow them to be able to communicate properly. And they have to be what's called severe or profound. For those that are in the spectrum of special needs, they will understand exactly what I'm saying. So we are pushing that legislation, and that particular bill will be called the Dunson, Hatcher, and Wells Act. And the significance of those names is Lala Dunson, which is Landon Dunson, is the son, who the original bill was named after. And then Aaron Hatcher, who is Ron Hatcher's son. And unfortunately, he passed away. He was a special needs student as well. And then Wells, Jessica has several sons, two sons, I believe, that have special needs. And so those are one of the strongest advocates that have been pushing for video cameras in these classrooms. And so as an honor for their kids, we named that particular act the Dunson-Hatcher-Wells Act. There were a couple other bills I was co-signers on. And anytime you all want to know anything about the legislation, about bills, and you're just curious, you can always go to legis.ga.gov. That's legis.ga.gov. And click on advanced search, and you can put any words that you want into that search engine, and it will pull up bills just for these 2 sessions. So if you want something back in 2016, you have to go all the way back to those sessions. But you are listening to State Representative Valencia Stovall of House District 74 here on WCEG Network. And we're excited about you all listening in, and hopefully all this information that was bottled up inside of me, and I still have some more that I'm going to probably gather some more since session. We'll be back in session on Tuesday, tomorrow. But hopefully we said something tonight that was advantageous for you, something that would be able to help you as you move forward. And if nothing else that you remember it's always important to give back. We're required as being on this earth to be able to give back in some manner. And God has given us all a special talent for us to be able to utilize that talent and being able to give back. Our children need your talents that you have. If you're a senior adult, even though you might say you're retired, there's still some things that you can do. Our children are in trouble. We had some legislation that was introduced dealing with gang violence, and I will talk about that next in our next show. But there's a serious things that are going on when it comes down to legislation. And sometimes some bills that we have, we want to be able to prevent and deter behavior. But we have to be very careful about how that legislation is crafted. Because if we're not trying to get the what we call the big dogs or the top dogs, and it's always the ones at the bottom, then we're going to always be arresting our young people at the bottom until we get the ones who actually are the ones making the decisions at the top. And so even with sex and human trafficking, it's a huge issue here across the nation. But, I have to talk about things that's going on in the state of Georgia. And so if you see something, you have to say something. And parents, I can't stress it enough. You have to be watchful of what's going on with your kids. You got to talk to them and see who their friends are, because there are a lot of predators out here that that like to prey on our young people. And this is not for girls only. You have young men or boys that are also being preyed upon because they're taught to be able to trust. And so we have to teach our children you can't trust everybody. And you have to be watchful. Parents, you got to search those phones, especially if you're paying for the phone. Now, if you're not paying for it, but if they stand in your house, you still got a right to do something. And don't think you can't spank your kids, because you can. I want to make sure you all know that because some of these kids need their hands laid on them. I'm not talking about praying. A lot of these issues that are going on with our young people, we need to show them some love. Don't spare that rod. But thank you again for listening in on WCEG Network Radio. I'm Representative Stovall, Valencia Stovall of House District 74. And we are now actually getting ready to close out our show. And if you just want to know some more information, guess what? We'll start session tomorrow. You can view us live streaming at house.ga.gov. We'll start off at 10 o'clock, but actually there'll be committee meetings at 7 a.m. But if you don't want to get up there early, then you can just tune in at 10 a.m. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you all on next time. You listen to State Representative Valencia Stovall on WCEG Network. And I want to give a big thanks to the Go Stovall team.